You're welcome. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Before we get to the big issues that we have put together to discuss for you this morning, let me quickly bring this important announcement to you from the GRA, the Ghana Revenue Authority. Payment of property rates bills. Remember, we have spoken to it about it here before and educated you on how to go about it. If you are paying and you are not paying through the right channel electronically, you are doing zero work. The Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, in collaboration with the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, informs the general public that property rate bills for all metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies are available electronically on portal.myassembly.gov.gh. portal.myassembly.gov.gh. Assembly is ASSEMBLY. All ratepayers are advised to log to portal.myassembly.gov.gh with their phone numbers. It's as simple as that. And validate their properties, view bills, and pay electronically. That's an important thing you need to know. You pay electronically using either mobile money, debit and credit cards, bank transfer, and checks. There must be no cash payment whatsoever to anybody. All payments must be made online at portal.myassembly.gov.gh. The general public is further advised that by section, 156(1) of Act 936, it prescribes sanctions, which sanctions include the sale of the defaulting property or properties to defray the amount owed. Note that ratepayers are therefore advised to make payments only on portal.myassembly.gov.gh, as payments made outside this platform will be billed again. Kindly contact 0302 756 820 or 0549 986 968 for further enquiries. And this is by the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Right. And we're going into the issues now. I've seen your many messages already flooding in over my take. My take is not a subject for discussion, but I get to your surprise. Yes, the same cases were referred to in all authorities, were referred to in the both cases. And yet one wins, one loses, one goes to High Court, Court of Appeal, wins again, and one is still suffering. Anyway, now let me introduce my guest to you, and then we get into the issues that we're discussing. And my guest for the very first segment on the BBC Africa Eye expose, that suggests that this U.S. charity, in the attempt of doing rescue missions for trafficked children, may be engaged in kidnapping children to raise their monies and getting their parents unnecessarily punished and incarcerated for child trafficking when they are not guilty. My guest are Kwache Afre Nuama, he's producer, the BBC Africa Eye. Anita Badu is Country Director, International Justice Mission, the IJM. And Bright Appiah, who else? Executive Director, Child Rights International. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Thank you, Samson.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Right, so please listen through here. And let me begin by giving you a sneak peek into what the investigators have brought, which the IJM says is incredibly concerning with material inaccuracies. On the voter leak, is it really the case? We have known that for many years now, there's work that's been going on there, particularly since 2015, when the IJM, got into this business there. And we have been praising and celebrating them for rescuing children, who have been trafficked and giving them the opportunity, to live their childhood in a beautiful way. And suddenly, we are being told by this documentary, which finds out that there is targeting. People are giving targets. Go and catch a number of children and bring them. Otherwise, you lose your job. Take a look or listen to this sneak peek. Right, so that's just a small bit of what the BBC Africa Eye expose tells. Kwacha Afreniama, let's start with you. You are a producer, BBC Africa Eye. So from this documentary, the story you are seeking to tell the world essentially is that there are children who are not trafficked, but who are picked up by IJM. And for what reason? And that also their parents are prosecuted and some are put in jail when in fact they are not, found to have trafficked children. But in this process, the IJM works with the Department of Social Welfare, they work with the police as well, and when a matter goes to court, it is before a judge. What do you say?
Thank you very much, Samson. So this investigation focused on 3 rescue missions by IJM. We focused on what IJM called Operation Hilltop, which was in September 2022, just last year. There is also Operation Freedom, which was on the 24th of October 2019, and also an operation that happened in 2017, April, in the Pala Island and surrounding areas. Now, to respond to your question, let me place the key findings in perspective. For example, in the September 2022 operation in Moina, which is Operation Hilltop, this Moina is a village in the Napali area in the northern region. 4 kids were removed or separated from their families. This was an IJM supported operation. And prior to this operation, the IJM had written, for example, to the Department of Social Welfare, indicating that they had come by the information or intelligence, together with the police service, that these are 4 cases of child trafficking. What we identify, and as we indicate in the documentary, is that with the undercover footage, we were able to identify that indeed prior to this operation, IJM knew that 3 of the cases did not fit or did not match the trafficking category. Yet, they wrote to the Department of Social Welfare indicating to them that these were 4 cases of child trafficking. Now, this is what happened. Subsequently, and indeed in this operation, if you listen to what the documentary, listen to the grandmother of 2 of the children, she said when the IJM supported team came in this midnight operation, they pointed a gun to her throat. They did not tell her who they were, why they were there. They held Fatima, the young girl you see my colleague Chen Shahine speaking to. They held her by the hands and the legs and took her away, took all the 4 children away. In the course of this exercise, this rescue mission, as IJM terms it as well, 2 uncles of these kids faced prosecution. Now, bear in mind that this is all based on information that IGM had provided to its collaborating agencies. In this case, for example, the Department of Social Welfare. The two uncles said they spent about 1,500 cedis each time, spent almost all their savings coming to court in Accra each time. The case was eventually abandoned by the prosecution, suggesting lack of evidence. Again, the family indicates that this was a very traumatic experience for them. In fact, what the residents of Mohina tell us is that as a result of this rescue operation by IGM, now a lot of the kids in the town are reluctant to go to school because of the Rambo style in which this occurred. The understanding also is that the chief of the village died out of shock after two of his grandchildren were taken away. Again, let me focus on Operation Freedom, which was in October 2019. The woman at the center of this conversation here is a trader, Amlade, mother of two, breadwinner of her family, and how she was feeding her family was, through her trade. And she was, some time later, involved in an accident that left her partially paralyzed. As a result, she couldn't work. So one of her children was working with a fisherman, and she tells BBC Africa Eye that in a week, at most, they were making, the child was making 30 Ghana cedis, and that's how they were feeding. And indeed, she indicates that when the IGM-supported team came and embarked on this Operation Freedom, she tried to explain to them, but they wouldn't listen. Now, Amlade was eventually prosecuted, sentenced to 5 years in prison. She spent 2 years of that time. And this is where it gets interesting, as we evidence in the documentary. A partner organization of IGM called Sudro Global Justice Institute managed to get Amlade out of jail. This was after serving half a sentence. And this is what they wrote on their their Instagram page after Amlade had been released from jail. And these are, I'm quoting here. They say, a mother of two, falsely convicted of a serious crime, held in prison for 2 years without access to a lawyer. It did not only affect her, but it had an effect on her community at large. End of quote. Now,
falsely accused.
Yes. This is a partner, and as I was saying, this is a partner organization of IGM, and I'll come back to establish how closely they work with the IGM. And again, a mother of two, falsely convicted of a serious crime, held in prison for 2 years without access to a lawyer. And she said she had no access to a lawyer. And this partner organization, Studio Global Justice, continued in that social media post that this incident did not only affect Amlade, but it had an effect on her community at large.
All right.
Now, subsequently, we identified that the West African director of Sudro Global Justice Institute, Alan Collier, soon after the arrest and conviction of Amlade, was using or operating from the offices of IGM in Ghana. Again, he was using a SIM card registered in the name of IGM's former country director, Will Lathrop. So this is what if you watch the documentary, this is how events unfolded. The IGM supported rescue mission led Amlade to prison. A partner organization of IGM, which works closely with this charity in Ghana, to the extent that their West African director was using a SIM card given to him by Will Lathrop. It registered to Will Lathrop and was using their offices in Accra. Accra later comes to say that she was falsely convicted. She had already spent half the sentence in half of that 5-year sentence. And the other interesting bit is that after this particular, in this particular social media post by Sudro Global Justice, they did not only say that that conviction was wrong, at the end of it all, they used the Amlade case to solicit for funds, if you get what I mean.
I do.
And so this in fine, the findings of this investigation seek to indicate, backed with evidence, that there's a certain target-driven culture at IGM. If you look at the undercover footage, you hear staff of IGM indicate that their continuous stay in the organization is tied to the ability to make a certain number of rescues every year. You heard the staff saying that you cannot go for so much money from donors and at the end of the day go and rescue just 10 children. They indicate further that you could lose your job if you don't meet.
Yeah, so what's your point to my question? Your point to my question will be that, as I get from you, that it is the IJM that, gathers the information, feeds the police with the information. So if they have to go and make the arrest, like they say, go just grab the child and run away quick because you may be attacked. And if they go on these missions, they are working with government organizations. You are saying that they misinform them and they also don't do their homework before they collaborate with them to, achieve the results in this mission?
The point here is that Samson, IGM, as we've evidenced in the documentary, provided unreliable and inconsistent information to, in the case of the Moina rescue mission, for example, that led to children being removed from their families, people being prosecuted, and this is all based on the information that IGM provided. And this is how it works.
Okay,
yeah.
quickly, give a minute. Say that in a minute.
Yeah, this is how it works. So IGM identifies specific cases of child trafficking. They have a team of investigators, and they then provide this information to their collaborating agencies, and that's where the collaboration begins. And then they embark on that rescue. So IGM itself that has a department that is supposed or actually does investigations prior to these rescue missions.
Right. And as you found, could this be, let's say an error or mistake? And I'm not saying that because they have issued a statement where they actually suggest that they are ready to learn, but they suggest that there are material inaccuracies. What did you learn was the total number that they have rescued through this mission of trafficked children in all so far, so that we may be able to give them a certain benefit that if they have rescued, say, 1,000 children, then it is not the case that this is what they do.
All right, so our investigation, I'll be able to speak strictly to what is contained in this investigation. Our investigation, for example, the operation in Pala in 2017, IGM, this was sort of a mass swoop where over 100 children were picked up by IGM, and out of the over 100, only 20% were identified to be trafficked. That means that 80% were not trafficked. And this was in Pala and the surrounding fishing communities. And this is according to IGM's own data. And also in the exercises conducted in Moina and also in Echiaman from involving Amlade. And this was indeed something subsequent to concerns that have been brought to our attention relative to IGM's operations in Ghana, sources very close to the operations and the activities of IGM in Ghana. So I'm able to speak strictly to these three case studies, indeed.
But so what do you in the face of what you just said, What do you make of their response where they say that you need to make a distinction between suspected cases of trafficking and suspected cases of exploitative child labor? So they may go in there to deal with exploitative child labor and not particularly trafficking of children. What do you say to that?
Well, in the Moina example, as I indicated, prior to the operation, IGM was aware that 3 of these cases did not fit the child trafficking category, and so that's clear enough. And you in the Amilade case, for example, after Amilade had been jailed, the legal representative of IGM said it didn't feel like justice.
All right.
And you can place that side by side with what the organization says it stands for: delivering justice to the poor in society.
Right. Let me get to Anita Badu, Country Director, International Justice Mission. That's the IJM. Once again, thanks for making the time to join us. So let's begin with these 4 children. The children, as I have seen some evidence, you wrote to the Department of Social Welfare on the 30th of August 2022, and you said, "Dear sir, request for the provision of social welfare services to rescued victims of human trafficking." That's your headline. Rescued victims of human trafficking. And then in paragraph 2 of your letter, you say, "The Northern Regional Command of the Ghana Police Service, with the support of IJM, will be conducting a rescue operation targeted at securing 4 children from forced labor trafficking. Forced labor trafficking in the fishing industry on the Volta Lake in Zabzugu district." This is what they are referring to. Now, you got a reply from the district social welfare, whom you had written to, and they had gone there, spoken to the relatives, spoken to people in the area, as is normally done in social welfare reports, or what in court we call social inquiry reports. Now, they note the first child, a female, 11 years, and they said, this is the status of that girl. Mother, they named the mother. Status, the mother is alive. Father, you name the father. Then you go to the second child. That child, you give age 7. Mother, status alive. Father, status alive. You name them as well. Number 3 is a female, 11 years. Mother, you name the mother. They name the mother and say the mother is deceased. The father, they say the father. They name the father and say the father is alive. And the final child, the last child, is female, 4 years old. They show that they give you the mother's name. The mother is deceased. The father is alive. Now, they make this recommendation after this observation. So I read the observation. The observation says, it has been observed that the 4 children were not trafficked. Those are emphatic words. Were not trafficked into the community, but were sent there as a result of poverty and the death of the biological mother of 2 of the children. It is instructive to know that all the children are not attending school, as at the time of rescue, they were engaged in helping their caregivers to make ends meet. Recommendation by the social welfare. In view of the findings made in the community and the detailed understanding of the victim's situation, coupled with the community reservations on how the 4 children were removed from the community and placed into social care as suspected victims of trafficking, I recommend the 4 children should be sent back to the community for reunification with their respective families. IJM should consider provision of livelihood support to the parents and caregivers to enable them take proper care of the children and enroll them in school in the community. How do you now respond to, what do you now say to your response where you say there is considerable material inaccuracies in the documentary or the report?
Thank you very much for that, Samson, and this opportunity to speak on this issue. I continue to say that there are factual and material inaccuracies in the documentary that was presented. But first of all, let me speak a bit about IGM Ghana and the work that we do. I believe there have been references to 2015. That is when IGM Ghana was established in Ghana. The issue of targeting and addressing child trafficking on the Lake Volta is not one that is new, or it's not one that started in 2015. It's one that goes back many decades. And there have been many agencies, the government and many other agencies have been involved in tackling this. IGM's main approach in seeing that the issue of child trafficking and exploitation, I should highlight, in Ghana and in other abuses across the world, is to support and strengthen our public justice systems in being able to deal with this issue. And that cuts across a broad range of areas. And so there is training and capacity building. There is support and advocacy for resources and logistics. There is community work also being done. And so it's a wide range of areas or targets that we work towards. And so victim rescue or victim relief and restoration is just one out of a broad range of areas that we look at for successful work in this area. When we look at child trafficking, the reason that IGM focuses on that is that by and large, research and survivor experiences have shown that whilst we have child labor, exploitative labor, hazardous labor, forced labor, and trafficking, this is a wide spectrum. And perhaps we might not be able to go into all the detail, but they are very complex issues and sometimes cannot just be clearly drawn out with a ruler or a line. But these are things that are spelled out, the conditions or the terms are spelled out quite clearly in the Children's Act and the Human Trafficking Act in relation to what constitutes reasonable work or what that a child can engage in. There are very specific guidelines in terms of what is light work, what is hazardous work for a child. And so this notion that there is a team just going in without adequate information or children just sitting around happily without any issues and there being intervention is completely wrong. Secondly, our team works in conjunction with government agencies. And so where information is gotten across from communities, we feel that there is a need for due diligence before passing it, as much as we can do, before passing it on to the police and other government agencies. And so there are inquiries that are made to be able to go a little bit deeper into the case. We can't conduct an independent investigation. We can try and make sure that the information that we are bringing to the police is as accurate as we can. We don't have the legal mandate for that, but we do have a team that tries to go through that information and sift through so that the information that we are bringing to the police is as robust as possible. And any information that is brought to the police and the DSW per their mandate, they also investigate before agreeing to move forward on an operation. And so in this particular case, the police had the information and did their initial inquiries before there was an agreement to move forward. I should also say that there was information about many other children who there had been indication that they're in situations of exploitation or trafficking in that area, that those were not highlighted, those were not gone through, because we went through this robust system of narrowing down to those who we felt were most at risk. And yes, there was debate within the team as to what constitutes, which one of the cases comes under trafficking or labor. For me, I believe that is a sign of a healthy culture where people are able to come and say, this is what I think, and this is what the other person thinks. Through that, internally, we have a team of managers. Whenever a field worker or an investigator brings information to the team, it is sat with managers and there are determinations made before even a request is sent to our government agencies. To the letter that was referenced, I do admit that the title could be problematic. However, the detail, all the facts, the initial letter that was sent to DSW had all the facts of the children and the situations that were described in good detail. So no information about the uncertainties were withheld, or that we were very transparent with our government partners to say that this is where our concerns were.
So we need these your specific responses to the two specific curious situations. You say you admit that the framing of the issue in your letter of 30th of August 2022 may be problematic, but the details will show and negate that not all the 4 children were a result of child trafficking or trafficking. However, what will be your answer then to the recommendation by the social welfare, which brought you a report in December of the same year and said these children are not children trafficked? What you need to do is support their parents to get them better taken care of and also to go to school.
So the actual recommendation that was received from let me go back. Let's not forget that there was a 7-year-old boy in this group of children who it was quite clear that he was working on the lake and also farming, and he had been told that this is why you are here, this is your purpose. And I don't think any one of us would deny that that is an issue, or that is a problem. He wasn't in school and he was working long hours on the lake. Once that is done, he goes onto the farm. I wouldn't want my 7-year-old to be in that situation.
Nobody would want that to happen to their child.
Exploitation. And so that was the key prompt, where you have that concrete information on one child, but for the others are clear. When it comes to social work assessments, if there are a group of children in one situation, you can't say because I have concrete information on this, I'm going to leave the others. There's a probability that there could be a risk. And so you have to go in there and assess and then make a determination. And so when the DSW determination came, there were recommendations. Even though they were going back to their families, there were specific recommendations as to which family members they would be going to and why that was. And the reason was that they would be safer in those with those other family members, and they would have the opportunity to actually go to school and continue with their well-being and development. And our team provided support through that process. And as we talk about economic empowerment and support, our team works alongside DSW for each case that we are working on to assess the situation of the child protection and child well-being.
So my question again, and the public would like to know, why didn't you use their recommendations? We know that people may make errors, and you say you are depending on the collaboration of state agencies, including the police. Well, the police is not always correct. Sometimes they make mistakes. It's gone to court. Like I asked Afre, so why did the court also look through and incarcerate these people and so on, the woman particularly, and cause these 2 men to spend their livelihood fighting a court case and so on? The thing is that the courts will also not always get it right. Sometimes these things happen. But where you have been told by the important partner that these are not trafficked children, this is what to do with them, why do you do otherwise?
I don't believe that we have done otherwise. In each case that we've worked with the DSW, we have what we call reintegration. And so there's a list of where the family may be, where there are gaps, and where support needs to be in. We have provided support to over 300 children to their families, and whether it's charcoal business, whether they want to go to market and do a trade. We have provided support for paying or providing support for children who are going to school. Their stationery they need to get, sewing machines for people girls who want to go into seamstress trading. We have provided support for family, economic empowerment for families. In these 2 cases that have been highlighted, I'll start off with Amlade. The children did have contact with the mother even when she was incarcerated. There was an assessment done of a family member, and there was support put in place for her for a business, and the children were also supported through their educational needs. And again, with the other case, Hilltop, that was identified, there was support put in place for the family members. Other children were integrated to the family members that had been identified as safe. And so we look at the holistic well-being. In as much as our core mandate is supporting the justice system, we also believe very, very strongly that the well-being of the child is paramount. And when it comes to well-being of the child, the support system and the system of care is also important. And so all that is part of our programming.
Okay.
And so to just take a little part of our programming and overemphasize it and claim that is what is driving all our work.
So you see, Anita, the journalist dealt with facts that you cannot dispute. So why are you still blaming the journalist?
Well, I don't know I don't know that I can say I'm blaming the journalist. I am saying that there are inaccuracies in what is portrayed, or it's not the full picture of the work that goes on.
What is inaccurate about using your own request and the report from the social welfare to point to the glaring facts that they are not traffic kids?
What is inaccurate is that we cannot independently make a determination to move out and intervene. That intervention comes through the police processes and through their hierarchy and through their management, systems. That is what is inaccurate.
Okay.
The police assess, the police intervene, the police take action. We provide support through the cases.
Okay. So the next curious issue, granted that what you're saying is something we can work with, how come someone gets incarcerated because of your work for trafficking a child, and then a partner organization goes to the rescue of that person who had no lawyer and was jailed because of the information you churned out together with the police and your partners, of course, with the exception of the Department of Social Welfare? We cannot blame them because they gave inaccurate information. Now, I don't know if this was put before the court. Obviously, if it was, they wouldn't be the woman would not be incarcerated. But the curious question now is, how come a partner organization who is found to actually use your office and use a SIM card used by someone who has been head of your institution or an officer of your institution, now goes to the rescue of this woman, gets her out of jail midway, and celebrates that to the world, and also says that the woman was falsely convicted when the conviction was a product of your work, and then uses that to raise funds? How do you respond to that?
Thank you. So in this particular case, I want to also be clear that the case was presented to court and the plea was guilty. And so once a guilty plea has been given, the sentence comes through and goes through. That was done. That is what, let me say, the rule of law or the process of law followed. And within the court system, even though Amlade did not have legal representation, due processes that would need to be followed when one does not have legal representation were followed. However, I think that there is always a human side. We are not robots that are just moving, doing things left, right, and center, regardless of the impact. I think there was a human side, and that was felt with the team. And so this is where the decision was made for a referral. A referral was made to the Sudro Institute for some legal support, because it was felt that there was that emotion that she hadn't had legal support, and that referral was made. Sudro Global Institute is a partner from a global organization, and there was a member of their staff who was based in Ghana. Because of the global relationship, an offer was made for him for an office space within the office. Aside from this case, there is no other collaboration or working together with. Again, because of the human side and the emotion, it was felt that if there is something that this team can do, then the referral was made. But there was no other conversation or collaboration aside from that. Now, what they put on their website or how things flow from that side. I cannot really speak into that.
Okay. You say it's incredibly concerning, but in your statement, you seem to suggest that you want to learn from what has happened. I don't get that sense. I don't get that sense from you as this morning.
We are always a learning organization, and we learn case by case, operation by operation. And so I believe there was reference made about the way operations were done in 2017 or prior to 2017. We've taken a lot of lessons from that, and a lot of dialogue. What we really pride ourselves on is building good relationship with our government partners, and so having dialogue as to what can work better, and together moving forward in that. And so with this, yes, of course, things did not go 100% to plan, or as we would put it, but there are lessons to be learned, and we'll move forward with that. We always look to learn. We always look to grow. Processes were followed.
Do I hear you? Do I hear you admit that something went wrong in this operation?
I would say that on the face of it, there is a sense that there is a human face or human element in terms of feelings, emotions, and sentiment. We had no wrongdoing in terms of the processes and steps. And so what the learning really is in terms of nuance, where these are very unique cases, I must say. We've had over 70 cases that we've worked through and supported with our government agencies. And so there are particular cases where there are nuances and not the same as the standard. And these are the lessons that we want to sit with our government partners to look through these complexities and see how they are dealt with and managed in the future.
Okay. Yes or no? Did you comply with the Social Welfare Department's recommendations?
To support the family.
Their recommendations were that they are not trafficked, return them, support their family. Did you comply with that?
All our work is in collaboration with the DSW. So there was support.
I wanted a yes or no. Did you comply with it?
Yes, there was support put in place for the family members as the children returned. Okay.
Maybe a little understanding before I go to my other guests to speak briefly about this, then you take leave of us. What's the process? When does the report come in what you do? When does the report come in? Is it after you have, picked up these children, and after how long? Or the report comes in before you move in to pick up the children?
So the report of the social inquiry report?
That's correct, the social inquiry report.
No, the social inquiry report is done afterwards. And so after an intervention is made, there is a process of interviewing, sitting with the children, determining more details around their family situation, family histories, and then going on to do further assessments as to what steps need to be taken for their continued well-being.
Okay, so last thing, you don't feel some of your members may be under pressure to get children because you give them targets, and as we heard one of your officers say to the investigator who they managed to get either employed in your organization or somehow, that this may lead to some people doing the wrong thing?
Okay, so I believe that every organization has targets with all the areas of work that they operate in and all their objectives. And so we do have that. No individual person, field worker, has been said, you need to bring in this amount of children or you're fired. That has not been my experience, and I've been here for 8 years. That has not been the experience.
So that your officer was misleading?
I believe that things were taken out of context. However, what I was going on to say is that even though that is not the case directly, there are situations where people may feel that, and that is something that I will be looking into. In my experience, people are driven by the passion to
please tell me that this your officer on the tape was lying, that you don't give targets and people must push themselves to get the targets.
People push themselves because of their passion for children to be protected. not because of a number.
You suggest that she may have been misinterpreted, but we are listening to her say it directly, that you are giving targets, and you must get the targets. You are saying something different. How else could we hear her wrongly?
What I am saying is that targets are given in all our work. So targets in all our work that we measure, and we are measuring because we want to see that our work is having impact and there is change happening in this work that we are doing.
Yes, so
if we're doing this work and we're not measuring
back to my question, and I need a direct answer. And it was actually not one officer, as we understand, 3 officers, all saying the same thing, that you are giving them targets and they need to go in, grab and move. And this could lead people to do wrong things. Were these officers lying?
Again, these statements were taken out of context and out of a broader conversation being had on a lunch table or over a lunch table.
Okay.
And so for the bigger
Thank you very much. I get that. You have said it was taken out of context. So all that we heard, maybe we need to hear more, but we heard a conclusive, categorical statement that this is what it was. Mr. Bright-Appiah, what will you say after having had the benefit of this documentary? From where I sit, it looks like an organization with a good heart that's been doing a lot of good work. We have celebrated them over the years, but it's a human institution, and they have a little difficulty in admitting that something went wrong.
Yes, something. I think that something went wrong somewhere. Looking at the documentary and some of the additions that the lady made in respect to their mode of operations. And when I was watching the documentary, there are 3 things that came to mind. The first is that whether or not they followed the due process in the work that they did, and whether also they observed that professional standard. Because once you are registered in that sector, then it's expected that your conduct would also be in such a way that will protect the right of children and even the adult. And also whether the best interest of the child was also observed in the process. So for me, if you're able to answer these 3 questions in terms of how they conduct themselves, then probably we may attribute some of these things to administrative error, and then also making sure that it do not happen again. But listening to the lady and then also Fred, I see issues of process that sometimes we take for granted, because for you to do a rescue, the Children's Act is clear on what you need to do and the processes that you have to engage to do that. And even to the extent that the legislative instrument to the Children's Act gives you a clear direction as to what needs to be done. So once you follow that process, again, you are conducting yourself in a manner that's supposed to. But I think that for notice, that is where most of NGOs, our work must end. We need to notify the system to take up certain responsibilities. And if you look at the work of IGM, there is a high involvement of the state institutions like the police, social welfare, and they must take the lead in some of these things, so that when it comes to prosecution and all that, it's not a matter of IGM leading the process, but it's the state institution leading the process because they've been notified.
It obviously will be the police, not the organization, but they will depend on the information that is given to them. And the courts will also rely on the information that is supplied it.
And that is where my issue is, because what IGM did is to just give the system a notice that this is what is happening at this particular time. Irrespective of the report that they will submit to these institutions, it's not absolute report for them to depend on to do any further work, but rather it is a notice and they have to go in to do further investigation to establish whether indeed the notice served them is right and or it is wrong, so that they can make some recommendation. That is where the social inquiry report is very critical in deciding what you need to do. And whatever recommendation that will be made by a social welfare officer in respect to the social inquiry report, it must be followed strictly. But in most cases, most of the social inquiry report comes after a lot of things has happened to the family. There's a raid, there's all kinds of things. The police has also, you know how the police does their work and all that. So sometimes there's some kind of breach of that process. And for me, we should also look at the work of the police, the work of social welfare in determining the outcome. Because if the documentary is on IGM and they have also engaged all these processes to get certain things done, then we also have to question how the processes were done by these administrative bodies to get these people into jail and all that, and whether or not the interests of children were served. Okay. And I was a bit alarmed that the social welfare officer wrote a social inquiry report, made a recommendation, and we are still not getting answers to whether or not they respected the position of the social welfare inquiry report to be able to do their work. And we will need answers to that. And for the other thing has to do with the professional conduct. As organization, what are the processes that you have to engage, to be able to do those rescue, whether or not there's a standard or a policy procedure.
So from where you sit, what should be happening from here?
Yeah, where I sit, I think that one, we need to, as organization, we need to respect the position of these institutions, especially where they have made a social inquiry report and made a recommendation that we should follow. Again, we must always, at all material time, observe the best interests of children in matters of this nature to see where the child will be, will better serve the child rather than where we keep them and all that. So basically, these are things that for me...
And should this matter end here, after the expose, so to speak, and we also discuss it, that's it, end of the story?
Not at all, not at all. There's a lot of things that are in the documentary that, as she said, it must be a learning curve for us. Some of them we think that there's a breach of process, which we have to also follow up.
So who do you think should be doing what? Who do you think should be doing what? The state or who?
Something, that's where the problem is, because now, even some of the things done by the police, at the point it was reversed. So there's a whole lot of things that we have to do within that supply chain so that we can get the kind of results that we want at the end of the day. Because a case of that nature cannot go to court for the person to be prosecuted, sent to jail, and later find out that something went wrong. So sometimes the bench must get out of their seat to go into the community to do some analysis. The police must also get out of their seat to do proper investigation. Social welfare must also get out of their seat to do proper investigation before some of these outcomes are determined.
Thank you very much, Brighter Pierre.
Even one thing, even in the documentary, I think that something also went wrong because a child face was shown throughout the documentary. And for me, I think that if BBC can do something about it, they should do that, because
yes, the 11-year-old child, I made that observation as well. Okay, thank you very much, Brighter Pierre of the Child Rights International. We will, I'm sorry, but we are unable to continue this discussion at this point. We'll end it here. But just to let all of you know, all of us know, that according to our Children's Act, the interest of the child, the welfare of the child is paramount. And that's what we do in this country, according to our laws and even our courts. And therefore, the law requires that anyone, if you have a suspicion that a child is being abused, exploited, harmed, etc., you must report to the Department of Social Welfare. If you talk to the police, they may assist also. And so the institutions that are reported to must also do a good job. I'll take a break. I saw Kofi Bento was there, but you're supposed to be on the second issue and not this one. Kofi, in a minute, what do you want to say on this particular matter? And I realized that, for example, when she says that she went to court and she pleaded guilty, as a lawyer, you sit in court and people come there, they are confused, they don't really know what is happening. And sometimes they plead guilty when they are not. And sometimes after the event, we are able to go back to court and to show that they shouldn't have been pleading guilty. There are some judges who are also very active, who will make sure the issue is framed properly so that you understand before you make your plea. So have you left your child? Has your child gone here, gone to the sea perhaps? And she says, yes. I don't know. Is that what the sense you get?
Yeah, I mean, listening, look, there are good and also bad aspects to this story. But like Bright was saying, we need to appreciate that there are rules to this thing. And if you ask me, I'll say somebody should take this case up, study it, and make some of the recommendations. For the activists or organizations that are seeking to rescue children, quote unquote, we know that poverty is a multi-billion-dollar industry. We need to deal with how they operate because indeed, some of them prey on the negative stories and it's showing up. But then again, these are the same institutions that throw light on the kinds of exploitation that our children are going through, which is not being dealt with by the institutions unless these organizations throw light on them. And then you have the courts, like you said. Why would this person, a poor, I can imagine person who doesn't even understand the process, come and plead guilty? They don't know what they're dealing with. And then the judge says that, how should the system handle them? And then when these things have been thrown up, okay, what should be the recourse? I really wish, I would hope that Bright and Co can take this up so that we can mend this kind of arrangement. Because ultimately, there is something to gain from doing it right, and there's something to lose. I would have said, if we could be sure that our institutions would take care of our children, we should drive out all these people who come here supposedly to do us good. But we can't be sure. So we can't drive them out. But if they're also going to be here and profit over the misery of our children, then did we go or did we come? So somebody should get through this and maybe everybody will be better off in the end.
Well, Kofi, even the state defends its image when issues come up about cocoa growing areas, kids. I can't imagine the 7-year-old on the seas doing what? There was one of them, 4-year-old. I mean, I'm looking at my kids and I'm asking myself, how does this happen? So these organizations come and you can't say they shouldn't be there because we know the facts that these things go on. This exploitation, child abuse is going on. But some will also say traditionally we are known to have our children as sisters to do one thing or the other, and it should not be deemed as child trafficking and so on.
It's a difficult, situation to deal with, but there is a line beyond which reasonable child labor becomes unreasonable child exploitation and exposing that child to unreasonable danger, diving into the water lake. And the point you are making is very important. It is easy to identify these things. It is easy. So the institutions there, why would you wait for somebody to fly from the US to come and set up an organization here before they come and tell you that somebody is being exploited on the water lake? If they will do their jobs, like I said, we can ask all these people to go away because we know poverty is a multi-billion industry and people are exploiting it. But here we are. You can't just drive them away.
Thank you very much. We take a break, and when we return, the leak tape, the conversation with certain people. It's difficult, isn't it? Because of legal angles to things. You can hear voices, the voices for a fact. You can bet your bottom dollar that this is the person speaking, and yet you are not, in certain circumstances, allowed to say this is the person talking. And plotting to have the IGP removed, and for whatever reasons. But is this some gossip going on with just some party enthusiasts? And, the opposition is trying to elevate it to say that it's the government that has an agenda to remove the IGP because his conduct will not assist them win elections 2024. There are issues that are also being raised that the IGP he may have done certain things, and his appointment to, not everybody would have been happy about it, and so on. So it's legitimate that these things happen within the organizations. We'll be right back.